Jaya Rama Dava Puja Vihara Jaya Gopi Janabala Jaya Gopi Janabala Yashoda Yamuna Shira Yamuna Shira Ananda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Jai Om Pada Ram Center Jagacharya Srimad Srimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhagavatam, Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. His Founder Charles Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Ram Center Jagacharya Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 5, titled Prahlad Maharaj, the saintly son of Hiranyakashipu. Text 23 to 24. Again. Shri Paradu Vacha Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pad Sevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam Iti Pu Sarpita Krishna Bhaktis Chinava Lakshmanam Kriyeta Bhagavad Yada Tan Manye Nitam Uttama Shravanam Kirtanam Smaranam Padasevanam Arjunam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedana Iti Sarpita Vishnu Bhaktischena Navalakshana Kriyeta Bhagavat Yada Tan Manye Tanuttama Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padvedanam Arjuna Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedana Iti Pumsarpita Vishnu Bhaktischena Navalakshana Kriyeta Bhagavat Yada Tan Manye Ditam Uttama. Word for word. Sri Narada Vacha. Prahlad Maharaj, Brahmana, hearing, Kirtana, chanting, Vishnu, of Lord Vishnu, not anyone else. Smaranam, remembering, Padsevanam, serving the feet, Archanam, offering worship with Shadodha Pachana, 16 kinds of paraphernalia, Vandana, offering prayers, Dasya, becoming the servant, Sadhya, becoming the best friend, Atmanivedanam, surrendering everything, whatever one has. Iti, thus, Pumsa Arpita, offered by the devotee, Krishna, onto Lord Vishnu, not anyone else. Bhakti, devotional service. Chait, if, Namadakshana, possessed 9 different processes. Kriyata, one should perform Bhagavati onto the Supreme Personality of God. Ada, directly or completely. Tat, that. Manya, I consider. Adutama, learning. Uttama, translation of purport by His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prahlad Maharaj said, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pattern of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming His servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, surrendering everything unto Him. In other words, serving Him with the body, mind, and words. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. We'll be reading the second part of the Arches section of purport. Now let us discuss the offenses of deity warfare. The following are offenses: to enter the temple with shoes or being carried on a palanquin, not to observe the prescribed festivals, to avoid offering obeisances in front of the deity, to offer prayers in an unclean state, not having washed one's hands after eating, to offer obeisances with one hand, to circumambulate directly in front of the deity, to spread one's legs for the deity, to sit before the deity while holding one's ankles with one's hands, to lie down before the deity, to eat before the deity, to speak lies before the deity, to address someone loudly before the deity, to talk nonsense before the deity, to cry before the deity, to argue before the deity, to chastise someone before the deity, to show someone favor before the deity, to use harsh words before the deity, to wear a woolen blanket before the deity, to blaspheme someone before the deity, to worship someone else before the deity, to use vulgar language before the deity, to pass air before the deity, to avoid very opulent worship of the deity, even though one is able to perform it, to eat something not offered to the deity, to avoid offering fresh fruits to the deity according to the season, to offer food to the deity which has already been used or from which has first been given to others. In other words, food should not be distributed to anyone else until it has been offered to the deity. To sit with one's back toward the deity, to offer obeisances to someone else in front of the deity, not to chant proper prayers when offering obeisances to the spiritual master, to praise oneself before the deity, and to blaspheme the devotees, to the blaspheme the demigods. In the worship of the deity, these 32 offenses. In the Varaha Purana, the following offenses are mentioned: to eat in the house of a rich man, to enter the deity's room in the dark, to worship the deity without following the regular principles, to enter the temple without vibrating incense, to collect food that has been seen by a dog, to break silence while offering worship to the deity, to go to the toilet during the time of worshiping the deity, to offer incense without offering flowers, to worship the deity with forbidden flowers, to begin worship without having washed one's teeth, to begin worship after sex, to touch a lamp, dead body, or a woman during her menstrual period, or to put on red or bluish clothing, unwashed clothing, the clothing of others, or soiled clothing. Other offenses are to worship the deity after seeing a dead body, to pass air before the deity, to show anger before the deity, and to worship the deity just after returning from a crematory. After eating, one should not worship the deity until one has digested his food, nor should one touch the deity or engage in any deity worship after eating safflower oil or ink. These are also offenses. In other places, the following offenses are listed: to be against the scriptural injunctions of Vedic literature, or to disrespect within one's heart the Srimad Bhagavatam, while externally falsely accepting its principles, to introduce differing shastras, to chew pan and betel before the deity, to keep flowers, for worship on the leaf of a castor oil plant, to worship the deity in the afternoon, to sit on the altar or to sit on the floor to worship the deity without a seat, to worship the deity with the left hand while bathing the deity, to worship the deity with a stale or used flower, to spit while worshiping the deity, to advertise one's glory while worshiping the deity, to apply tilak on one's forehead in a curved way, to enter the temple without having washed one's feet, to offer the deity food cooked by an uninitiated person, to worship the deity and offer bhoga to the deity within the vision of an uninitiated person or non-Vaishnava, to offer worship to the deity without worshiping Vaikuntha deities like Ganesh, to worship the deity while perspiring, to refuse flowers offered to the deity, to take a vow or oath in the holy name of the Lord. If one commits any of the above offenses, one must read at least one chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. This is confirmed in the Skanda Purana, Avantikanda. Similarly, there is another injunction saying that one who reads the 1,000 names of Vishnu can be released from all offenses. In the same Skanda Purana, Kanda, it is said that one who recites prayers to Tulsi or sows a Tulsi seed is also freed from all offenses. Similarly, one who worships the Shalgram Shiva can also be relieved of offenses. In the Brahmanda Purana, it is said that one who worships Lord Vishnu, whose four hands bear a conch shell, disc, lotus flower, and club, can be relieved from the above offenses. In the Adi Varaha Purana, it is said that a worshipper who has committed offenses may fast for one day at the holy place known as Shaukavra, and then bathe in the Ganges. In the process of worshiping the deity, it is sometimes enjoined that one worship the deity within the mind. In the Padma Purana, Uttarakhanda, it is said all persons can generally worship within the mind. In the Gambhira Tantra states, for a sannyasi who has no home, worship of the deity within the mind is recommended. In the Narada Panchatra, it is stated by Lord Narayana that worship of the deity within the mind is called manasa. One can become free from the four miseries by this method. Sometimes worship from the mind can be independently executed. According to the instruction of Avargucha Muni, one of the Navayogendras, as mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, one may worship the deity by chanting all the mantras. 8 kinds of deities are mentioned in the Shastras, and the mental deities is one of them. In this regard, the following description is given in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. In the city of Tishthanapura, long ago there resided a Brahmana who was poverty stricken but innocent and not dissatisfied. One day he heard a discourse in an assembly of Brahmanas concerning how to worship the deity in the temple. In that meeting, he also heard that the deity may be worshipped within the mind. After this incident, the Brahmana, having bathed in the Godavari River, began mentally worshipping the deity. He would wash the temple within his mind, and then, in his imagination, he would bring water from all the sacred rivers in gold and silver pots. He collected all kinds of valuable paraphernalia for worship. And he worshipped very gorgeously, beginning and from bathing the deity and ending with art. Thus he felt great happiness. After many years, one day within his mind he cooked nice sweet rice with ghee to worship the deity. He placed the sweet rice on a golden dish and offered it to Lord Krishna. But he felt that the sweet rice was very hot, and therefore he touched it with his finger. He immediately felt that his finger had been burned by the hot sweet rice, and thus he began to lament. While the Brahmana was in pain, Lord Vishnu in Vaikuntha began smiling, and the goddess of fortune inquired of the Lord why he was smiling. Lord Vishnu then ordered his associates to bring the Brahmana to Vaikuntha. Thus the Brahmana attained the liberation of Samipya, the facility of living near the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Agena Tamandasya Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshamatamyanam Tasma Shri Guruve Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we are continuing with the discussion of Archana, deity worship, as one of the 9 processes of devotional service. And as Prabhupada points out in the latter part of the section which we read, it is possible to worship the deity within the mind. In the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a description of the various forms or the various materials that one is permitted to make a deity from. Some of these make permanent forms of the deities, for example, stone or metal or things like that. Then others, such as drawing the deity in the sand or worshiping in the mind, are manifest for only a short amount of time. And in the story that Prabhupada has repeated from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, it is mentioning a very intense, very engrossing form of deity worship within the mind, which is called Manasa Puja, where the Brahmana has cooked sweet rice within his mind and being concerned that it was too hot, tested it by sticking his finger into it. And it did turn out to be too hot because it burned his finger. And even though it was in his mind only, he actually felt his finger being burned. So he was so engrossed in the meditation that there was no difference between his internal experience and his external experience. There are a couple of other examples of similar things happening in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where it describes one devotee uh, was so excited that Lord Chaitanya uh, was traveling to Vrindavan, I think it was, that he started to construct, decorate a uh, road that stretched from Jagannath Puri to Vrindavan, uh, decorating with flowers along the side and all these things. But even within his mind, he could not construct it past a certain point. Can you think about that? That you know, generally we think of things as imagination. We can imagine whatever we want. If I want to build a road from here to California in my imagination, there's nothing stopping me. But in this case, he couldn't, within the mind, uh, construct a road from uh, one place to the other, even within his mind. And from this, he understood, of course, that on that trip, uh, at least Lord Chaitanya would not make it to Vrindavan. He would turn back at some point. And there's another example that a devotee was performing worship within the mind, and he had taken the old flower garland off of the deity as Maha. And when he opened his eyes after Manasa Puja, he saw that a garland exactly like the form in his mind had appeared on him, that the Lord had given him his Maha, even his Manasa Maha physically. So these are examples of the level of intensity that Manasa Puja can reach to, that one can uh, actually have these mm, things, actually have these paraphernalia and activities manifest actual physical symptoms. And if one is uh, performing deity service, even the external deity service correctly, then there is not so much difference between Manasa Puja and the actual physical puja that we are performing. Because Manasa Puja is actually an integral part of deity seva, in that we have to engage our mind in thinking about how to worship the deity. Because the uh, level of existence that we are at, actually what we are absorbed in, determines how we approach life. It is said that material existence is primarily experienced through the mind, that the various happiness, stress, various forms of that we experience are not only external. Two people can be in the same situation, but by having a different outlook on it. can be in very different states of mind. As it is said in Bhagavad Gita, what is night for the conditioned living entities is day for the self-realized soul, and vice versa. That the devotee sees things differently than the non-devotee, and even within the category of materially conditioned living entities, those in different modes of nature see things differently uh, due to the different ways that they are approaching it, the different ways that it is interacting within the mind. And so, uh, this is one of the advantages of worshiping the deity, is that it allows one to perform manasa puja if one is worshiping correctly. In that, when one is planning to perform uh, some sort of service for the deity, one is given the opportunity to meditate on it. For example, when we dress the deities, we generally pick out the jewelry the day before, uh, so that we look at the outfits and think, how would this necklace or this flute or uh, these turban pieces look on the Lord's body? Or we are cooking for the Lord. It is not that we just show up and throw something together. Is that we meditate. Okay, I need to make 8 preparations for the Lord's lunch minimum. So I will think, okay, I cook rice like this, cook dal like this, use these types of vegetables, put this spicing in the chutney. But then if I make a spicy chutney, I'll have some yogurt or something to cool the Lord's mouth. And this way we can actually increase our absorption in the pastimes of the Lord. Because the activities that we do on the altar, the activities that we do serving the deities, are the same activities that are performed in the spiritual world. Uh, we are dressing the deities. Mother Yashoda is also dressing deities. We are cooking for the deities. Radharani is also cooking for Krishna. So the uh, different upacharas that we offer, the different items of devotional service that we offer to the deities, is preparing us for the service that we can do in the spiritual world. Actually, if one has proper vision, there is no difference between the spiritual world and the altar and the dawn more generally. So anywhere where Krishna is the spiritual world. Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. So we see Damodar standing on the altar here. We understand that Gita Nagari is non-different than Vrindavan, because we have the opportunity to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Someone might say, though, that, okay, this worship is being done, and it's just like the worship that the residents of the spiritual world give to Krishna. But then, what's going on with all of these offenses? The first few paragraphs that we read today is all of the different ways to make offenses to the deities. And they aren't thinking about these sorts of things when in Vrindavan. Uh, to offer somebody else obeisances in front of Krishna, for example, is an offense. But what to speak of offering obeisances to someone else in front of Krishna? Krishna and Balaram themselves offer obeisances to their father, Nanda Maharaj. Uh, to address someone loudly before the deity, uh, to argue before the deity. And there's all sorts of arguments that come up in the pastimes in Vrindavan, and so many other uh, cases to chastise somebody before the deity. Uh, what to speak of chastising somebody before Krishna? Mother Yashoda and the elder gopis chastise Krishna themselves. And what are you doing stealing yogurt and butter from the storehouses? Uh, you're such a naughty little boy. Uh, so, if we are trying to serve Krishna like the residents of Vrindavan, then why do we have to study and be concerned about all of these offenses? And the answer is that the platform of spontaneous devotional service that is manifest in Vrindavan is a very elevated platform that we are not on. The residents of Vrindavan have no other desires than to please Krishna. And in their seemingly breaking these principles, they are actively uh, giving pleasure to Krishna in that way. When there's arguments or something between the residents of Vrindavan, uh, that is just extra flavor for the pastime. But we are not on that level. We are still materially conditioned living entities. So we have the rules and regulations. Prabhupada instituted that even though we are worshiping Radha and Krishna, we worship them in the mood of Lakshmi and Narayan, full of opulence and awe and reverence. Because if we did not, we will take it very cheaply. Uh, we will think that we are worshiping on this elevated level when actually we would just approach the deity for our own sense gratification. This is the Sahajya of the Sampradaya, that uh, they wish to uh, experience this high level of Krishna Bhakti, this high level of devotional service. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to experience that. But as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has said, you first deserve and then desire. You have to go through the purificatory process. And these offenses and the various rules and regulations of deity worship are there in order to train us in how to properly elevate ourselves to the of worshiping Krishna. When we start deity worship in a materially contaminated state, there is every possibility that we will be serving the deity for our own sense gratification instead of for the sense gratification of Krishna. Oh, I would like to do these things, some sort of religious activity that, I like to feel a certain way, or people see how well the deity was dressed, or uh, how opulently or tastefully the Rajboga was cooked, then they will praise me. And, uh, I'll get some standing as, somebody who really knows how to do deity worship. Of course, when one first starts deity worship, uh, one approaches it in that way often. And, it is not a disqualification per se, uh, especially if it motivates one to uh, serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead in very opulent or mm, beautiful or very devotional way, or very in a way that is very high quality. But that's why the rules and the regulations are there. Because if it is done in the materially conditioned state, where there is mixed devotional service for our own sense, so whether it's for our own sense gratification or a mix between our own sense gratification and actual devotional service, then there's every chance that we will approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the wrong way. So that is why uh, that the offenses and the various other rules and regulations are enumerated. That there are a sort of guardrails so that we can come to the stage uh, of properly worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead in spontaneous devotional service. But until we are at that level, we have to carefully follow the rules and regulations. And even that level, we should still follow the rules and the regulations in order to set an example for others. Our movement is generally not a kind of Babaji sort of movement, uh, Vajrayanandi, where one just sits and uh, refuses all social norms. No, even when one is elevated, we follow in order to set an example for others. And as one practices this form of devotional service, both externally as physically worshiping the deity and internally with the monosect component, then as mentioned in this story of the Brahmin and the sweet rice, they can attain the uh, liberation of samipya, that is living near to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And actually, if one has proper vision, if one is worshiping the deity, then one has already obtained the liberation of samipya. Uh, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is just a few meters from me at the moment. There is no difference between Krishna in the spiritual world and Krishna on the altar. So that if we are given facility to worship the deity, we are already living near the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is only up to our mind how we approach it and the level of our purification that determines whether we uh, understand, whether we realize that opulence that we have, that liberation of living near the Supreme Personality of God, or not. So we should fully take advantage uh, of this process of devotional service, that of worshiping the deity. Uh, if one is second initiated, one can, of course, engage in deity worship either in the temple or in one's home. It is recommended to at least sometimes come to the temple, even if one has own deities, and even if one is uh, not second initiated. There are so many, what one could call secondary or backup tasks. Organizing the pujari room, picking jewelry, things like that. That can even be done then. So if one is desiring to worship the Lord in this way, then the opportunity is there and can purify us of our material contaminations by engaging us in always thinking about Krishna. So I'll stop here. We have about 14 minutes left for any comments, questions, etc. on the process of Archana.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol Prabhu.
Yeah, because I'm hearing impaired, I can't really tell if anyone else is speaking, so I don't want to interrupt anybody.
Nobody else was speaking.
Okay, then I will proceed. Um, Two things about um, offenses in deity worship and the rules and regulations associated with the avoidance of such offenses. Um, my own realization, for many years, I did a great deal of deity worship, both in India and in the U.S. And in high profile temples where you really had to set a very nice example. If you're doing Pujari work in Vrindavan, for example, um, there's a lot of eyes on you, and you really have to be careful. But um, some of my realizations, two things in particular, stood out for me. One is that if you take seriously the business of following the regulations and avoiding the offenses, it fosters constant remembrance of Krishna. You're always thinking of Krishna because why are you doing it? You're doing it for the pleasure of Krishna. You're trying to avoid offending Krishna. And so um, it it forces you to constantly remember. If you remember what the offenses are and you try to avoid them, then you're always thinking of Krishna in the course of trying to avoid offenses. So it actually, one may see the regulations as being troublesome, but when you practice them sincerely, they become ecstatic, absolutely ecstatic. It's wonderful. You want to do it. You enjoy doing it. It becomes an ecstatic experience because it constantly inspires remembrance of Krishna. And then next realization is that by that practice, it becomes not just a means of remembrance, but an expression of bhakti. It is the way in which you manifest your love for Krishna. So let's say, for example, you want to offer an orange to the deities. You could just take the whole orange and you just plop it down in front of the deities and consider the job done. But you could manifest more bhakti by taking the time and trouble to peel the orange and separate the segments and arrange them nicely on a plate maybe in some ornate pattern, to make the offering visually appealing. And so in various ways you can increase the service. You can manifest different degrees of bhakti by, if you're sincerely trying to please Krishna, you will naturally be inspired with all different kinds of ways that you can improve your service. And devotees become very, very creative in that way. They find a million ways to try to please Krishna by whatever they're doing. Um, Here at Gita Nagari, you can see a million examples. If you look at the deities on the altar, you can see that someone has taken a great deal of trouble to arrange a turban in a certain way that they all kinds of wonderful decorations have been created by someone who was just inspired to please Krishna in a particular way. So the offenses um, serve a wonderful function. They help us to always remember Krishna, and they give us opportunities to manifest our bhakti by avoiding the offenses and simply trying to do everything nicely for Krishna's pleasure. Sometimes we want to try to simplify things. Um, Sometimes we see these things. Sometimes devotees will, they will regard these things as very troublesome, and they think, maybe this is really unnecessary, or they will use as an excuse for avoiding the troublesome things. Um, Time, place, and circumstance, Prabhu. You know, the circumstances are such that to try to do this strictly would be very troublesome. So we're just going to dispense with that. But when you do that, you shortchange yourself. It may not make a great deal of difference to Krishna one way or another. He's transcendently situated. Our insignificant activities don't really make a whole lot of difference to him, but it makes a huge difference to us. When we take the time and trouble, that's how our bhakti is manifested. And that's where we make our advancement. The willingness to take that trouble for Krishna's pleasure is important. That's what we want to cultivate. We're not looking for the easy route. Bhakti means where we are enthusiastic to do whatever may be pleasing to Krishna, even if it is very troublesome. We take that trouble on ourselves. There should be no trouble for Krishna and his immediate associates. We will take all the trouble. We'll do everything necessary to ensure that Krishna can simply enjoy himself very nicely. So anyway, that's some of my realizations. Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for a nice class as always.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Yeah, so the offenses also help you remember Krishna. Also, what came to mind when you were speaking is that sometimes if offenses are happening, at least regular, Damodar will let you know, and it's happened. I've taken on a bit of management in the Pujari area, and there have been incidents where when some things were going wrong, Krishna had ways of letting me know so that I could point them out and try to fix them. So yeah, it's all even the offenses, which might seem kind of strange or uh, onerous sometimes, are all part of the personal relationship between the devotee and. Does anybody else have comments or questions?
Hare Krishna.
Bible, Jamil.
Yeah, thank you, Targa, for those comments that you were making about bringing our consciousness to bringing our consciousness by following the offenses. I've been thinking about the whole concept of Vrindavan consciousness, and you so nicely were pointing out how serving the deities here in Gita Nagari is actually serving Krishna in Vrindavan, and um, and the ideal of focusing on Krishna's pastimes and just having that mindset of how to serve nicely so brings that consciousness of Vrindavan. Um, and as you were speaking about the Brahmin who was worshiping in his mind, I always liked that story because it really brings home to our intention and how we cultivate our mind in terms of worshiping Krishna. So I just wanted to say those few things. If you could speak a little bit more on that intention in our minds and how we um, approach serving the deities and serving the pure devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, so about intention as we are coming to serve the deities. Yeah, and it's devotional service is to a large extent all about our intention. Of course, one may accidentally perform devotional service, all these things, but uh, the whole point is to purify our intentions in our devotional service. It is, however one approaches Krishna is purifying, but still it is recommended to approach him with the proper intention. Uh, the example has been given. I'm reading the Brihad Bhagavatam Rita, and the example that is brought up there and elsewhere is, Kamsa was always meditating on Krishna. He became uh, elevated, and he became purified by that meditation. But it's not recommended to meditate on Krishna like Kamsa did, but instead like the residents of Vrindavan did, because their intention in meditating on Krishna was to serve him. And what purification really means is purification of our intentions. Uh, that one is becoming more and more willing and desirous even to serve Krishna uh, up to and including the stage of pure devotional service as manifested in Vrindavan. Of course, one may come before the deities or do any sort of devotional service with any sort of intention. In the third canto, Lord Kapila talks about the process of devotional service in the modes of nature. And it talks that specifically that worship of the deity by a separatist is in the mode of passion. So one may do an approach in any intention, but another example, of course, is in the fourth canto, the pastime of Dhruva, who approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead for material opulence, but ended up becoming purified and not wanting the opulence after all. So one can approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead with basically any intention. But as one performs the processes of devotional service, that intention becomes purified until there is nothing other than the desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is the mood of the residents of Vrindavan and specifically of the gopis. So it is 8 o'clock. The conch shell is going. So Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jai. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Shri Radhe. Jaya Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shri Radhe. Jaya Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shri Radhe. Jaya Nitai Govinda Sundar Nitai Govinda Sundar Gora Hari. Jaya Nitai Gora Sundar Nitai Gora Sundar Gora Hari. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Guru Jara Devala Sadma Shri Guru Devala Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Na Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivastari Gaura Bhaktan Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Vishnupada Pravijaka Chaya Srimad Srimad, the divine grace, AC Bhagavatam Prabhupada, the Nikon with the child, Ila Bhagavad, and Jaya Vishnupada, Bhaktivedanta says, I think those way on. Ramacharya Shas support Gita. Hem Singh Ho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Asari Robhakta Prinakizad Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Radha Queen Giri Govardhan Ki Sri Vrindavan Ki Jai Mai Pardhan Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Ananskar Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Samveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Nitya Gaur Premanande. All goes to these some devotees. All goes to these some devotees. All goes to these some devotees. All goes to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All goes to